From elegant fawns trotting after their leading ladies down city streets, to cheetahs sunning themselves on Hollywood estates, the private worlds of these classic Hollywood stars were often as spectacular as any performance they delivered on film. Here, we are going to cover the Josephine Baker. Josephine Baker was known worldwide for her groundbreaking performances, unique style, and unapologetic flair that dazzled audiences from Paris to New York. She shattered racial barriers and challenged societal norms at a time when prejudice was rampant. Less widely appreciated, perhaps, is her lifelong passion for animals, a fixation that matched the boldness of her stage persona. Among the many creatures that shared her life, her cheetah, Chiquita, gained particular notoriety. Baker, famed for her electrifying dances in banana skirts and glamorous costumes, took her shows to new heights when she began including Chiquita in her performances. The cheetah wore a glittering collar, often studded with what appeared to be diamonds, capturing the audience's attention from the very moment it sauntered onto the stage. While some might regard this as a gimmick, Baker insisted it added an element of real danger and spontaneity that thrilled her crowds. In truth, she deeply admired the cheetah's natural grace, agility, and wild unpredictability, qualities that paralleled her own fearless approach to entertainment. Beyond the spotlight, Josephine Baker made her home at the Château de Milande, in the Dordogne region of France. There, she amassed a small sanctuary of diverse animals, ranging from monkeys and parrots to goats and pigs. Her menagerie was a testament to her charitable spirit and her desire to integrate different species under one roof, an echo of her broader dream of universal acceptance. Baker was not content to be known solely for her success on stage. She longed to craft a personal utopia where creatures of all kinds lived in harmony, mirroring her progressive ideals about race, ethnicity, and inclusion. Audrey Hepburn. No star radiated grace and warmth quite like Audrey Hepburn. While she is principally remembered for her timeless turns in films such as Breakfast at Tiffany's and Roman Holiday, few realize the depth of her love for animals, a bond that would shape her personal life off-screen. One of the most enchanting stories dates back to the late 1950s, during the production of Green Mansions, when a baby deer entered her life in an unexpectedly charming way. During the filming, an animal trainer suggested that Audrey spend time off-set with the movie's young deer, affectionately called Pippin, though Audrey would nickname it Ip. The theory was that consistent interaction outside the studio would make the deer more comfortable around her during shooting. This plan blossomed into a real-life fairy tale. Audrey, slender and gentle, formed an instant connection with the fawn. Whether she was at home, strolling along Beverly Hills' palm-lined avenues, or even visiting the local grocery store, the sight of Audrey gliding gracefully with a deer padding beside her became a fixture of local lore. Neighbors recalled glimpses of the iconic actress returning home with Ip trotting behind her, a far cry from the typical Hollywood star, escorted by bodyguards or paparazzi. Despite her global fame, Audrey was known among her peers for an introverted kindness. She had an innate inclination to nurture and care for vulnerable creatures, an attribute often attributed to her experiences growing up in wartime Europe. For Audrey, a fawn was not some mere novelty. It was a helpless living being she felt compelled to protect and reassure. Ip. Assistant Audrey's empathy did not end with Ip. She frequently rescued stray dogs and cats, a practice that seemed to begin as soon as she could afford her own home. One particularly heartfelt rescue was a Yorkshire Terrier found wandering the streets of Rome while she was on set for another film. She named him Mr. Famous, and the little dog soon became her constant companion, joining her on photo shoots, film sets, and travels abroad. In the bustling chaos of movie production, Mr. Famous was said to calm her, acting as an anchor in the frenetic world of international stardom. Not merely content with adopting animals, Audrey also supported organizations committed to their welfare. Although she is most famous for her later work with UNICEF, helping children worldwide, She likewise believed that kindness to animals was a hallmark of a civilized society. Friends and confidants recall that her modest gardens were frequented by birds, squirrels, and even the occasional raccoon. She left out water and food for stray or wild creatures in her neighborhood, fostering small sanctuaries wherever she lived. Tippi Hedren. Few Hollywood narratives can rival that of Tippi Hedren, the star who gained fame under Alfred Hitchcock's meticulous direction in The Birds in 1963, but later carved out a wholly different chapter in her life as a caretaker for lions, tigers, and other magnificent creatures. Hedren's transformation from Hitchcockian ingenue to fearless advocate for exotic animals stands as one of the most extraordinary journeys in show business. In the 1970s, Hedren and her family adopted a lion cub to better understand the behavior of big cats for a film project eventually known as Roar in 1981. Though many would balk at the notion of raising a lion in a domestic environment, Hedren was initially guided by a mix of curiosity, affection, and a desire for authenticity in their film. Their home soon became a surreal environment. Pictures exist of the young lion sprawled atop the living room couch, with Hedren's teenage daughter Melanie Griffith stepping over its tail. What started as a family experiment soon evolved into a larger crusade. Realizing the sheer complexity of properly caring for big cats and the tragic fates many of them face, Hedren established the Shambhala Preserve, an animal sanctuary located north of Los Angeles. Over time, the preserve provided refuge for more than 100 exotic animals, including lions, tigers, leopards, and even elephants. Hedren not only oversaw their daily care, but also advocated for stricter regulations on the ownership of exotic animals by untrained individuals. Crucially, her activism laid groundwork for laws such as the Federal Big Cat Public Safety Act, though that legislation would gain traction years later. Hedren's determination to highlight the plight of big cats in private hands was decades ahead of its time, prefiguring discussions that only entered mainstream consciousness much more recently. Grace Kelly. Before becoming Princess of Monaco, Grace Kelly enchanted moviegoers with roles in films like High Noon, Dial M for Murder, and Rear Window. Much like her film persona, Kelly led a relatively refined and graceful private life. Behind the stately demeanor and regal aura, she nursed a consistent devotion to animals, especially dogs. Her transition from Hollywood royalty to real-life aristocracy did not diminish her commitment to four-legged friends. One of Grace's most notable pets was her poodle, Oliver, who became a near-constant presence. Even as she fulfilled official functions in Monaco, charity galas, receptions, and the endless protocol that accompanies royal life, Oliver was never far behind. So closely bonded to the princess was this poodle that he reportedly sported a custom collar, sometimes said to be studded with gems, befitting his status in a palace. Palace staff often remarked that Kelly's most relaxed and unguarded moments came when she was in the company of her beloved dog. Beyond her personal pets, Grace Kelly also advocated for broader environmental stewardship, particularly in the Mediterranean region that became her adopted home. She played a pivotal role in championing the creation of protected marine zones around Monaco, hoping to safeguard aquatic life and habitats. The princess recognized that her high-profile status carried influence, and she used it to encourage appreciation for the natural world. Though these efforts remained less publicized than, say, her friend Audrey Hepburn's philanthropic engagements, they showcased Kelly's commitment to preserving life's delicate ecosystems. Clark Gable. Clark Gable, fondly remembered as the King of Hollywood, defined masculine charm in films such as Gone with the Wind in 1939 and It Happened One Night in 1934. Known for his rakish smile and iconic mustache, Gable was outwardly every inch the leading man. Yet behind that charismatic exterior beat the heart of an unabashed animal lover. Gable's fondness for dogs, horses, and ranch living set him apart from the typical urbanized star of Tinseltown. Among Gable's most cherished companions was a German shepherd named Prince. The actor's bond with Prince went beyond the ordinary. They were inseparable whenever Gable was off set. On more than one occasion, Gable reportedly declined film offers that required prolonged travel because he dreaded being away from Prince for weeks on end. The protective dog was said to greet Gable at the end of each day's shoot, bounding across the yard in unrestrained joy at his master's return. Outside the studio system, Gable owned a substantial ranch in California, a home that allowed him to breathe fresh air, tend to farm animals, and find relief from Hollywood's prying eyes. There, he raised horses and cattle, forging a bond with the animals that was both practical and deeply emotional. Neighbors would occasionally spot Gable strolling through his land at dawn, tipping his hat as he checked on his horses and fed the chickens. In that environment, the star was simply another rancher, not the global celebrity he became when stepping onto a film set. Rudolph Valentino. Rudolph Valentino, often hailed as the original Latin lover of the silent era, mesmerized audiences with his piercing gaze and passionate performances in films like The Sheik and Blood and Sand. Yet behind the carefully orchestrated aura of romance and drama, Valentino was, in many respects, a larger-than-life figure in real life as well. His estate, Falcon Lair, became an emblem of his extravagance, and at the heart of that magnificence was an array of pets that ranged from horses to one of the era's more spectacular conversation pieces, a cheetah named Zella, and sometimes spelled Zella. Zella was not merely an indulgence Valentino sought out. She was offered to him as a present from an admirer. Instead of declining the exotic gift, Valentino welcomed the cheetah into his estate, fascinated by the mystique that these big cats exude. Walking a cheetah on a leash around the lush gardens of Falcon Lair might seem bizarre, but Valentino's unabashed theatricality made it appear almost natural. Visitors would recount seeing the lithe feline gracefully sauntering at his side, lending an exotic flair to an already mythic persona. However, Valentino's affinity for animals was far more than a glamorous stunt. He deeply valued their companionship, spending significant time learning about their habits and ensuring that Zella's living conditions were comfortable. The presence of a cheetah was, of course, sensational fodder for tabloids and gossip columns. Fans clamored for any detail about Valentino's private life, and the image of their idol casually strolling with a wild cat was too tantalizing to ignore. Valentino's love for animals extended well beyond flashy displays. One of his great passions was horses, especially Arabian breeds. Among these, Jadon, a striking white Arabian stallion, held a special place in his heart. The horse appeared with him in promotional material, posed for studio publicity stills, and even became a co-star in select scenes. Observers noted that Valentino treated Jadon like a valued partner rather than a mere prop, ensuring the stallion received superb care, from stabling to specialized training. When Valentino tragically died at the young age of 31, his fans were inconsolable, and Hollywood lost one of its most bankable stars. In the mourning that ensued, Jadon's role took on almost symbolic significance. There were memorial events where the regal stallion was paraded, a stirring tribute to Valentino's memory and the bond they had shared. Carole Lombard. Carole Lombard reigned as Hollywood's comedic genius in the 1930s, starring in hits like My Man Godfrey in 1936 and To Be or Not to Be in 1942. Beloved by her razor-sharp wit and lively performances, Lombard also nurtured a deep-rooted affection for animals. Her circle of furry friends offered a respite from the whirlwind of studio engagements and social events. Among Lombard's various pets, a wire-haired fox terrier named Pushface stood out, partially for his unique visage, hence the moniker. The actress doted on him like a child, frequently bringing Pushface to her film sets. He'd hang around makeup artists and hairstylists, occasionally causing minor havoc by chasing after cables or scurrying around cameras. Lombard's colleagues quickly learned that her good mood was often tied to the presence of her scruffy companion. Her devotion to animals extended well beyond her personal pets. During the Great Depression, economic hardship forced countless families to give up their dogs or abandon them outright. Lombard refused to ignore such suffering. She donated generously to local animal shelters, funding everything from food supplies to veterinary care. Her philanthropic efforts were rarely publicized, as it was not typical in those days for actresses to receive positive publicity for charitable work. Still, stories circulated throughout Hollywood about how Lombard would personally deliver resources to rescue organizations and even adopt multiple strays herself. Bette Davis. Bette Davis, famous for her mesmerizing eyes and no-nonsense acting style in classics like All About Eve in 1950 and Jezebel in 1938, was a powerhouse in an industry that was notoriously tough on women. Known for her biting wit and fearless characters, Davis also possessed a gentle, nurturing side that found its expression in her relationships with animals, most notably her cherished Cocker Spaniel, Zarena. Davis frequently spoke of Zarena as if she were a confidant. During grueling shooting schedules, the actress insisted on keeping her dog close by, even if it meant clashing with studio executives who frowned upon non-essential visitors on set. For Davis, having her beloved Cocker Spaniel near alleviated tension and offered her a comforting presence amid high-pressure film productions. The actress's intense eyes might have intimidated her co-stars, but they often softened when she gazed down at her furry friend. In an era when the film industry routinely used animals in productions, sometimes without humane oversight, Davis objected to the maltreatment she occasionally witnessed. She questioned the safety of animals in stunts and disliked seeing them handled roughly. Although her stance never materialized as a large public campaign, Hollywood in the 1940s and 1950s was not especially amenable to activism. She did advocate on set for better treatment. She used her considerable clout to ensure the animals present in her own films were well cared for. Elizabeth Taylor. Elizabeth Taylor was as famous for her bejeweled lifestyle as for her Academy Award-winning performances. While she remains synonymous with opulent diamonds, such as the legendary Taylor-Burton diamond, and her many high-profile marriages, her lesser-known passion was an eclectic menagerie that mirrored her grand persona. For Taylor, animals were not mere novelties. They were integral fixtures in a life marked by epic romance, cinematic triumphs, and global notoriety. Among her many pets, one stands out for sheer uniqueness: a coatimundi named Casper. Coatis, relatives of raccoons native to Central and South America, are hardly standard household pets. Yet Taylor's flair for the extraordinary extended into her choice of companion animals. Casper was known to perch on her shoulder during media interviews, inevitably drawing as much attention as the star herself. Often described as mischievous, the coatimundi would explore the sets of her films and occasionally steal small objects, to the bemusement of onlookers. But for Taylor, who had grown used to the unpredictable nature of the entertainment world, Casper's antics were part of the fun. Casper was hardly an outlier in Taylor's life. She adopted countless animals over the years, including numerous dogs, such as a beloved Maltese named Sugar, whose comfort became a personal priority. Elizabeth Taylor developed a lifelong admiration for horses. This classic movie about a girl and her horse resonated deeply, spurring her to champion equine welfare later in life. She donated both time and resources to stables and horse rescues, recognizing that many retired racehorses or neglected equines needed safe havens. This was just one facet of her philanthropic streak. While her name is often associated with HIV/AIDS activism in, and rightly so, her less publicized efforts toward animal rescue were equally earnest. Whether she was stepping in to save a stray dog she encountered or partnering with charities dedicated to preventing cruelty, Taylor's compassion transcended the glitz of her film star persona. Jean Harlow. Jean Harlow, often dubbed the original blonde bombshell, redefined Hollywood stardom in the early 1930s with her platinum locks, quick wit, and screen presence that sparked a new cinematic era. While her well-publicized image radiated glamour, her private life was anchored by an ardent devotion to animals, especially dogs. Sometimes overshadowed by her tragic, early death at 26, Harlow's genuine love for creatures remains a touching part of her legacy. When she first rose to fame, Jean Harlow quickly discovered that personal relationships became complicated under Hollywood's intense scrutiny. Actors were frequently hounded by gossip columnists, forcing them to build walls around their private lives. But animals offered a rare sense of comfort and emotional refuge. Harlow's affection for her Pekingese dogs was no flighty fad. She cherished them as confidants in a world where trust was a precious commodity. Her most beloved Peki, named Choo Choo, joined her practically everywhere, from the film set to the dressing room to private gatherings with close friends. Harlow's devotion to her pets was more than a passing fancy. Between shots, she would check on her dogs, ensuring they were content and well cared for. If Harlow had her way, the dogs would lie curled up in her trailer, waiting for the final cut of the day. Fellow cast members and crew recalled her gentle interactions with animals as a marked contrast to the often frantic demands of the movie business. Quiet philanthropy was also part of Harlow's approach. She reportedly made discreet donations to local animal charities, well aware of her influence, yet preferring to avoid publicity stunts. In the 1930s, donating to organizations that saved stray animals was not common practice, especially for a star whose public persona was so carefully engineered by studios. But those close to her recognized how deeply she wanted to protect vulnerable creatures. Humphrey Bogart and Lauren Bacall. Humphrey Bogart personified the hardened cynic with a hidden heart of gold, while Lauren Bacall's smoky voice and unwavering poise made her an instant legend when they first shared the screen in To Have and Have Not in 1944. Their off-screen love affair became as celebrated as their cinematic chemistry. Yet amid the glitz and stories of film noir, their bond with a certain boxer dog named Harvey revealed a tender side that fans seldom witnessed. Bogart had a long-standing appreciation for dogs, having grown up in a well-to-do family in New York City that always had pets underfoot. When he and Bacall married, they expanded their home to include Harvey, a spirited boxer who was constantly underfoot, much to the couple's delight. The dog became a fixture, whether they were hosting gatherings with Hollywood elites or traveling across the country for promotional tours. Bogart's tough guy image softened noticeably around Harvey, a transformation Bacall sometimes joked about, saying that Harvey was the only soul who could steal Bogey's seat without risking a gruff retort. Harvey was occasionally sighted on set, while Bogart shot iconic films like The Treasure of the Sierra Madre or The African Queen. The dog's presence was both a comfort to Bogart and Bacall, and a testament to their refusal to be entirely subsumed by Hollywood's hectic schedules. Unlike many stars who used animals as mere accessories, Bogart and Bacall treated Harvey as a beloved family member deserving of time and attention, even in the midst of camera calls and production chaos. Clara Bow. Clara Bow lit up the screen during the silent era and into the early talkies, famously known as the It Girl for her flirty charm and effervescent style. While the public marveled at her vivacious spirit, privately, Bow found a grounding influence in the companionship of her dogs, many of them rescues from less fortunate circumstances. Bow held a firm belief that animals, especially dogs, could perceive and respond to human emotions in a way few people could. Rumors circulated that Clara Bow threw extravagant puppy parties on occasion, complete with canine-friendly confections, ribbons, and dog biscuits arranged like a banquet. Though some might dismiss it as a celebrity whim, for Bow these gatherings were a testament to her genuine adoration for her pets. Indeed, the actress was even rumored to have postponed a film shoot because one of her dogs fell ill, an unprecedented move in an era when studios wielded enormous control over an actor's schedule. Her Hollywood co-workers noted that her dogs exuded a near-therapeutic effect on Bow. If ever she appeared stressed about memorizing lines or fretting over her next public appearance, a wagging tail and a few minutes spent petting her furry companions often calmed her nerves. Such scenes stood in stark contrast to the flapper image the media portrayed. Basil Rathbone. Basil Rathbone became synonymous with Sherlock Holmes, portraying the brilliant detective in a string of films during the 1930s and 1940s. With his hawk-like profile and precise diction, Rathbone brought Sir Arthur Conan Doyle's fictional sleuth to life so convincingly that it's difficult for many fans to envision any other actor in the role. Off-screen, however, Rathbone was far removed from the aloof detective archetype. His world revolved around a lively household of pets that included a mischievous dachshund named Moritz. Moritz was notorious among Rathbone's friends for his escapades, a playful canine prone to bounding over furniture, pawing at unsuspecting visitors, and even sneaking onto film sets with Basil's approval. When the actor spoke of Moritz, he used the same meticulous attention to detail that he employed in analyzing Sherlock's cases, describing every quirk and silly habit as though it were a clue in a puzzle. Moritz, for his part, seemed blissfully unaware that his owner was an internationally recognized star. He was simply the devoted companion of a gentleman who loved to toss him treats during breaks from memorizing scripts. Rathbone's appreciation for animals went beyond doting on his dachshund. His home also provided shelter to cats, parrots, and even some rescued wildlife. Marlene Dietrich. Marlene Dietrich epitomized old Hollywood allure. Born in Germany, she gained international stardom and eventually became a U.S. citizen. Known for her sultry singing voice and magnetic screen presence in films like Morocco in 1930 and Destry Rides Again in 1939, Dietrich was also an individual of remarkable depth. Among the lesser-known facets of her life was a steadfast devotion to animals, particularly dogs. Dietrich's devotion to her dachshund, Bessie, was so intense that she reportedly smuggled the dog across borders during her USO tours in World War II. Stories abound with Dietrich defying regulations simply because she refused to leave her beloved companion behind. In the middle of war-torn landscapes, she sang for Allied troops, and Bessie was never far from her side, emblematic of Dietrich's resilience and unwavering priorities. If the dog's presence comforted her while she performed in harsh conditions, Dietrich considered it non-negotiable. She recognized that human conflicts inevitably spilled over onto innocent creatures. Though she was more discreet in these efforts, she contributed financially to organizations dedicated to rescuing war horses and other animals left abandoned in devastated areas. This empathy stemmed from her own experiences growing up in Europe, where she witnessed the toll that international strife could take on civilians and their pets. James Stewart. Jimmy Stewart, often hailed as Hollywood's quintessential everyman, starred in beloved classics like It's a Wonderful Life in 1946 and Mr. Smith Goes to Washington in 1939. Known for his warm demeanor, stammering charm, and integrity both on and off screen, Stewart's hidden passion was the deep connection he formed with his pets, particularly a golden retriever named Bow. Stewart's bond with Bow was so profound that when the dog passed away, Stewart wrote a poem in his honor. The touching eulogy was read by Stewart himself on The Tonight Show starring Johnny Carson, bringing the typically jovial host to tears. The poem spoke of Bow's unwavering companionship, his playful antics, and the sense of loss Stewart felt in his absence. In a world where stoicism was often expected of men, particularly leading men, Stewart's emotional display underscored the depth of his grief. While not one to wave banners or orchestrate publicity stunts, Stewart consistently backed animal welfare efforts. He supported local shelters, sometimes anonymously, and offered help to neighbors or colleagues who rescued strays. Friends noted that on his ranch in California, Stewart ensured that all his animals, from horses to barnyard cats, were cared for with the utmost respect. He firmly believed that a strong moral compass included kindness to creatures less powerful than ourselves. From Audrey Hepburn's gentle bond with a fawn named Pippin, to Tippi Hedren's full-scale dedication to big cat welfare, to Basil Rathbone's playful dachshund romping around a family-oriented household, these personal animal stories paint an intimate portrait of individuals who were more than the roles they played. The relationships they built with their furry, feathered, or sometimes fearsome friends serve as timeless reminders that even at the heights of fame and fortune, the simple need for unconditional companionship remains a universal bond uniting us all.